Thank you so much for that great introduction. Thank you for all of you coming out today. I appreciate your time. We're here to talk about a very important subject that will have immediate relevance to each one of you, and that's how we're going to turn the economy around to make sure that you can have jobs for your future so that you can begin to enjoy the American dream. I know there's a few people that are around the room, and just like church, it's the seats in the front row that are left open. So you're invited and welcome to come and sit up here if you'd like to have a seat. And it's terrific to have you here. I apologize to those behind you. I don't mean to have my back to you, but we're going to have a good time here over the next few minutes, and I look forward to the point, especially when we can have your questions, so we can have a dialogue and an interaction. And I can't help but note that you are all so young and so good looking. I remember what that feeling was when you're young and you're thin, and just appreciate it because it doesn't last forever. So thank you guys for being here. I am an Iowan. I grew up here. I was born here. I was raised up in Cedar Falls, and a lot of my family still are here in Iowa. Ames is the site of the Iowa Straw Poll that I was grateful to have won this summer in less time than any other candidate in the history of the straw poll, and the first woman to have ever won the Iowa Straw Poll. So I was grateful that it was an Iowan who was able to win this year. And also, I was here on the day that the Cyclones successfully walloped the Hawkeyes, and I just want you to know, I'll be up there to deliver my sympathy to them the next time that I am up in Iowa City. So let me go proceed with my remarks that I prepared for you today, and thank you for your kind attention. Our third president wrote a letter to our second president, and in that letter he wrote, it was actually John Adams that said this to Thomas Jefferson, he said, "You and I ought not to die before we have explained ourselves to each other." You see, they had a long-running rivalry, and Adams felt it was very important at that stage in their relationship that they actually figure out what it was that they disagreed with each other. And I think that's one thing that politics is missing, the element of trying to at least understand where your opposing party is coming from. And before our struggling economy falls further into a free fall like it is today, I want to offer my opinion to you here this morning in Ames on the best course of action that I believe that our nation should take to solve the economic problems that we're dealing with. As I mentioned to you, I am an Iowan, but I'm also a former federal tax litigation attorney, and I'm also a creator from scratch of a successful, profitable business. And yes, I boldly stand here today and say I believe in profit, and I think profit is a good thing, and we need more of it. I can think of no better place than Iowa State University to offer my explanation of how the United States can turn the economy around into the crucible of public debate. And I'm running for president because of the young people that are here in this room today. I have a very strong personal interest in all of you. I have given birth to 5 biological children who are now grown, gone, 3 of whom are today in college, and also 23 foster children came into my home. And my husband and I together raised them and launched them off into the world as well. So you see, I am the old woman in the shoe with 28 kids, and I have a very strong, deep investment in your generation and in the life that you will know in the future in realizing the American dream. Because I believe that this 2012 race is about you more than anyone else in this country. It's about you and about what your future holds for you. And over the last several months, all of us have been rightly concerned about the high unemployment that Stephen mentioned in his opening remarks. It's even more profoundly difficult for African Americans. African American youth unemployment this summer was a staggering 45% of good kids who wanted to work but couldn't find a job. It was staggering also for Hispanic youth. It was 36% good kids who wanted to work but couldn't find a job. That's continuing to imperil our country as well as the lives of those individuals. Now, it was just a few weeks ago that our Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid, said something that summed up, I thought, quite nicely the fantasy economic thinking that's dominating in Washington, D.C. today when he said, "It's very clear," and I quote, "that private sector jobs have been doing just fine. It's the public sector jobs where we've lost huge numbers." Now that caused a lot of people's jaws to hit the ground when Majority Leader Reid said that, because since 2007, it's the private sector where we've seen dramatic loss of jobs, 3 times greater than in the governments and the public sector. Because today, the average wage of a federal employee is over $126,000 when you combine the wage and benefits packages. That's roughly 2.5 times the U.S. median wage. The United States of America is history's most successful political and economic experiment. And the United States has proved that a country that is rooted in free market competition will lead the world in innovation in areas that have advanced disciplines. And your university has been part of that miracle story here in Ames. You have dealt, not only just at this school, but also at Iowa State, you've led in the areas of medicine, of science, of technology. You churn out great engineers, and I encourage even more engineers to be turned out in America's schools. And you've made our quality of life second to none. But when government forcefully takes your money from you through taxes and then gives it to politicians and political donors, like we've seen in the recent cylinder scandal, among others of this administration, then it becomes our cash for government's clunkers. And worse, American competitiveness in the world becomes a casualty and badly damaged. Some who are currently a part of Occupy Wall Street believe that the problem that we're facing today is capitalism, and that the problem today are free markets. It's not. The problem is government doing what both the Constitution and decent morality prohibit, and that is crony capitalism, or forcefully taking your money away from you for the purpose of paying off a politician's political friends. You see, it's done every day in Washington, D.C. The problem is one set of standards the government has for individual Americans and another separate set of standards for those who make political donations to candidates. That's wrong, and that has to stop. Because the problem is an individual tax code that has 3.8 million words that's really so complicated, the average American today has to pay someone to fill out their tax form. And a corporate tax code that makes America hopelessly uncompetitive at a near 40% tax rate when you combine both federal and state taxes. And a tax code that contains loopholes that are exploited by companies who are big enough and rich enough to hire enough armies of lawyers to exempt them from the requirements that are applied to smaller companies that have no ability to be able to go to Washington and somehow pay their way out of those high taxes.